I stopped swallowing the pills on a Tuesday night in October, and by Thursday morning, I understood why my father wanted me unconscious every single evening at exactly 9 p.m. The small white tablets had been part of my routine for 6 months. Dad would bring them to my bedroom door with a glass of water and that concerned expression fathers are supposed to have. He'd tell me they were helping with my anxiety, that Dr. Patterson had prescribed them specifically for my panic attacks after Mom's accident. He'd watch me put them in my mouth, watch me drink the water, and then he'd kiss my forehead and say goodnight. What he didn't know was that on Tuesday I'd tucked the pill under my tongue instead of swallowing it. I waited until he closed my door, then spit it into a tissue and hid it in my desk drawer. My name is Cassidy Walker. I'm 28 years old and I've been living back in my childhood home in Portland, Oregon for 8 months, ever since the car accident that killed my mother and left me with injuries that made living alone impossible. Or at least that's what my father told me. That's what everyone told me. The pills made me sleep so deeply that I never heard anything. Never dreamed. Never woke up until morning light filtered through my curtains. Dad said that was good, that my body needed rest to heal. But on that Tuesday night when I pretended to take the medication, I stayed awake. And at 10:47 p.m. I heard my bedroom door open. Before we continue, please hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I read every single one and it honestly makes my day. This story gets darker than you can imagine, so buckle up. Now back to what I discovered. I need to take you back to February, to the night that changed everything and put me in my father's control. Mom and I were driving home from my apartment in the city. I'd invited her to see the gallery space where my photography was being featured. It was the first real exhibition of my work and she was so proud she'd taken about 100 photos on her phone to show Dad. We were laughing about how she'd accidentally used a flash and gotten yelled at by the gallery owner. The roads were wet from earlier rain, and I remember Mom was in the middle of telling me about Dad's surprise birthday party she was planning when the headlights came out of nowhere. The truck ran the red light at maybe 50 miles per hour. It hit Mom's side of the car. She died at the scene. I woke up 3 days later in the hospital with a fractured leg, 2 broken ribs, and a concussion that the doctors said might cause memory problems. Dad was there when I woke up. His eyes were red and swollen and he held my hand so tight it hurt. He told me about Mom. He told me the doctor said I'd need months of recovery. He told me I couldn't go back to my apartment, that I needed to come home where he could take care of me. I was so shattered by grief that I just nodded. I couldn't imagine being alone. I couldn't imagine facing my empty apartment without Mom's voice on the phone every morning. So I went home to my childhood bedroom and I let my father take care of me. The first month was normal grief. Dad made meals I couldn't eat. He drove me to physical therapy appointments. He sat with me while I cried. My older brother, Wesley, lived in Boston with his wife and 2 kids, so he couldn't be there much. He'd call every few days and Dad would always answer, always say I was sleeping or resting. Then Dr. Patterson started coming to the house. I'd never met Dr. Patterson before. Dad said he was a family friend, a psychiatrist who specialized in trauma. He had a kind face and a gentle voice, and he told me it was completely normal to have anxiety after what I'd been through. The panic attacks started about 6 weeks after the accident. I'd wake up gasping, convinced I was still in the car, still hearing the sound of metal crushing metal. Dr. Patterson said medication would help, just temporarily, just until my brain chemistry balanced out. The pills started that same week. Dad was so careful with them. He'd bring them at exactly 9 p.m. every night. He'd sit on the edge of my bed and talk to me while I took them. He'd tell me about his day at work, about the neighbors, about Wesley's kids. Normal dad stuff. Comforting stuff. And then I'd sleep. Deep, dreamless sleep that lasted until morning. My days blurred together. Physical therapy, meals, medication, sleep. I barely used my phone. My camera sat untouched in the closet. Friends stopped texting after a while because I never responded. Dad said that was okay, that I needed to focus on healing, that the outside world could wait. But something felt wrong. It started with small things. I'd wake up with my clothes arranged differently than I remembered. My laptop would be warm in the morning, even though I hadn't used it the night before. Once, I found mud on the floor of my room even though I hadn't left the house in days. When I asked Dad about these things, he'd look concerned and suggest that my memory problems from the concussion were worse than we thought. He'd mention it to Dr. Patterson, who'd nod seriously and adjust my medication. The pills got bigger. The sleep got deeper. And I started to feel like I was disappearing. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Monday afternoon in early October. Dad was at work. I was sitting in the living room staring at nothing when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer it, but something made me pick up. It was Jade, my best friend from college. We hadn't spoken in months. She was crying. She asked me why I'd sent her that horrible email. She asked me how I could say those things about her family, about her life choices. She said she tried to call me 100 times but I never answered. She said she was calling one last time to tell me she never wanted to hear from me again. I had no idea what she was talking about. She forwarded me the email. It was sent from my account at 11 p.m. on a Saturday night, 3 weeks earlier. The message was vicious. It said things I would never say, attacked things I would never attack. It was written in a way that sounded almost like me but crueler. Meaner. I was unconscious at 11 p.m. that Saturday. The pills made sure of that. I hung up with Jade and opened my laptop with shaking hands. My sent folder was full of emails I didn't remember writing. Messages to friends, to old colleagues from the gallery, to my landlord telling him I was giving up my apartment and he could keep my security deposit. Every single one was sent between 10 p.m. and midnight. Every single one was sent while I was supposed to be asleep. That's when I started checking other things. My bank account showed transfers I didn't remember making. Small amounts, 200 here, 500 there, all going to an account I didn't recognize. My social media had posts I didn't remember creating, photos of me looking happy and healthy with captions about how well I was recovering at home. But the worst thing was my photography portfolio website. Someone had deleted it entirely. 3 years of work gone. The gallery contact who'd been interested in representing me? An email in my sent folder, sent at 11:30 p.m., telling her I was giving up photography and to please not contact me again. My entire life was being erased and it was happening while I was unconscious. I sat there in the empty house staring at my laptop screen, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not fear or grief. Rage. That night when Dad brought the pills at 9 p.m. I smiled and took them. I put them in my mouth, drank the water and opened my mouth to show him they were gone. But I tucked the pill under my tongue. After he left, I spit it into a tissue. My heart was pounding so hard I thought he'd hear it through the walls. I lay in bed, perfectly still, staring at the ceiling, waiting. At 10:47 p.m. my bedroom door opened. I kept my eyes closed and my breathing steady. I'd read once that people in deep sleep breathe differently, slower and more regularly, so I focused on making my chest rise and fall in that same rhythm. Dad's footsteps were soft on the carpet. He stood by my bed for what felt like forever. I could feel him watching me. Testing. Then he whispered my name. Cassidy. I didn't move. Didn't react. I was supposed to be unconscious. He said my name louder. Cassidy. Can you hear me? Every muscle in my body wanted to flinch, to respond, to ask him what he was doing. But I stayed perfectly still. Finally, he moved away from the bed. I heard him walk to my desk. The sound of a drawer opening. Papers rustling. Through my barely open eyelids, I watched him take my laptop from my desk and leave the room. My door clicked shut. I lay there for 10 minutes counting my heartbeats before I dared to move. Then I slipped out of bed as quietly as possible and pressed my ear against the door. I could hear him downstairs. The clicking of keyboard keys. The sound of the printer in his office running. I spent that entire night lying awake, my mind racing. What was he doing with my laptop? Why did he need me unconscious to do it? And why had he been doing this for 6 months? Wednesday night I hid the pill again. This time I was ready. I'd positioned my phone on my nightstand, angled toward the door with the camera app open and recording. Dad came in, I'd have proof. He came in at 10:52 p.m. Again he tested me. Said my name. Touched my shoulder. I stayed limp and unresponsive. Then he did something that made my blood turn cold. He pulled back my blanket and lifted my arm. He examined my wrist, turning it over, looking at something. Then he took out his phone and photographed my arm from several angles. After he left, I turned on my lamp with shaking hands and looked at my wrist. There were bruises there. Small ones in a pattern that looked like fingerprints. I didn't remember getting them. But in the video I just recorded, you could see Dad studying them carefully, documenting them. Thursday night I hid the pill again. But this time after Dad's test I waited 30 minutes. Then I got out of bed, crept to my door and opened it just a crack. The house was dark except for the light coming from under Dad's office door. I could hear his voice. He was on the phone with someone. I moved down the hallway as silently as I could, my heart hammering so hard I was sure he'd hear it. The old hardwood floors creaked under my feet, but I kept going until I was right outside his office. Through the crack in the door I could see him sitting at his desk, my laptop open in front of him. He was laughing. Actually laughing. I know. But you have to admit it's genius. The grieving daughter, too traumatized to manage her own affairs. Nobody questions it. My stomach dropped. He was quiet for a moment, listening to whoever was on the other end. Then he said something that made me want to scream. The life insurance money cleared last week. $500,000. It's in the account now, and since Cassidy signed the power of attorney, I have complete access. She has no idea. The pills keep her out cold, and during the day she's so foggy she can't think straight. Power of attorney. I'd never signed a power of attorney. Except apparently I had. While unconscious, Dad continued, Wesley's not a problem. He hasn't visited once. I send him updates, tell him she's doing better, send him those photos I take. He believes everything. And Cassidy's friends? I've burned those bridges already. Nobody's coming to check on her. He paused. The house will take a few more months. I need to wait a decent interval after Joan's death. But I've been working on her. The medical records show severe cognitive impairment from the concussion. Dr. Patterson's documentation is perfect. When I put her in the care facility, nobody will question it. And once she's there, the house goes on the market, her remaining assets get transferred, and it's done. Care facility. He was planning to institutionalize me. My father, the man who'd raised me, who taught me to ride a bike and held me when I cried about boys in middle school, was systematically destroying my life to steal money from me. From Mom's death. I backed away from the door slowly, my hands shaking so hard I had to press them against the wall to steady myself. I made it back to my room, closed the door, and stood there in the darkness, trying to process what I'd just heard. The car accident wasn't bad luck. Mom's death wasn't just a tragedy. It was an opportunity. For him. I looked around my childhood bedroom. The same room where Dad used to read me stories. Where he'd check for monsters under the bed. Where he told me I'd always be safe. And I realized that the scariest monster had been here all along. Friday morning I played my part perfectly. When Dad came to wake me, I was groggy and confused, just like I'd been for months. I let him help me to the bathroom. I let him make my breakfast and watch me eat it. I let him treat me like a child who couldn't function. But inside, my mind was sharp and focused for the first time in half a year. I knew 3 things. First, I couldn't let him know I'd stopped taking the pills. Second, I couldn't trust anyone he'd been talking to, which apparently included Dr. Patterson. Third, I needed evidence of everything before I made any moves. The hardest part was acting normal while rage burned through every cell of my body. That afternoon, while Dad was at his office job, I searched the house. I found the power of attorney document in his desk drawer. My signature looked perfect. The date was from July, right when I was at my foggiest. The form gave him complete control over my finances, my medical decisions, and my property. Everything. I photographed it with my phone. I found bank statements showing the life insurance payout. $500,000 from Mom's policy. It was deposited into an account that had both our names, but according to the paperwork, only Dad could withdraw from it. I photographed those too. In his filing cabinet, I found a folder labeled Cassidy Medical. Inside were dozens of pages of documentation from Dr. Patterson. Reports describing severe cognitive decline. Observations about my inability to care for myself. Recommendations for long-term residential care. All of it was lies, but it was official. Dated. Signed. I photographed every single page. The most damning thing I found was a contract with a care facility called Riverside Manor. It was a locked psychiatric ward, 2 hours outside Portland. The admission date was set for December 1st, less than 2 months away. The monthly cost was $8,000, which would conveniently drain my inheritance from Mom over the next few years, all while Dad had complete control over it. I sat in his office, surrounded by evidence of his betrayal, and I had to force myself not to scream. But I couldn't just call the police. Dad had been too careful. He had medical documentation. He had legal paperwork. He had Dr. Patterson backing him up. If I came forward now, disoriented from months of drugs, with no witnesses, they'd believe him over me. They'd think I was paranoid and unstable. Exactly what his paperwork said I was. No, I needed to be smarter than that. I spent the weekend planning. Every night I hid the pills. Every night, Dad came in to test me, to use my laptop, to document whatever story he was building. And every night I recorded him on my phone, hidden under my pillow. By Monday I had hours of footage. But I needed more than footage. I needed a witness. Someone who could testify that I was completely coherent, completely capable. Someone Dad couldn't have gotten to. That's when I thought of Wesley. My brother hadn't visited because Dad told him not to. Dad sent carefully crafted updates and photos, making it seem like I was fine but needed quiet and rest. Wesley believed him because why wouldn't he? Dad had been a good father. Until Mom died and there was money involved. I waited until Tuesday afternoon when Dad was definitely at work. Then I called Wesley. He answered on the second ring and his voice was cheerful. "Hey Cass. Dad said you were doing so much better. I've been meaning to call but work has been insane." I interrupted him. "Wesley, I need you to listen very carefully and not say anything to Dad." The cheerfulness drained from his voice. "What's wrong?" I told him everything. The pills. The midnight visits. The deleted emails. The power of attorney I never signed. The care facility. The plan to steal Mom's life insurance money. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Wesley said very quietly, "I'm getting on a plane tonight." "No," I said. "Not yet. If you come now he'll know something's wrong. I need you to do exactly what I say." I laid out my plan. It was risky. It required perfect timing. But if it worked, Dad wouldn't just lose access to Mom's money. He'd lose everything. Wesley arrived in Portland on Thursday but didn't come to the house. Instead he checked into a hotel downtown and waited for my call. That same day I made an appointment with a different doctor. A real one who had no connection to Dad or Dr. Patterson. I told her I needed a complete medical evaluation and drug screening. She was concerned about the bruises on my arms and the way I could describe exactly what medications I'd been given without my knowledge. She documented everything. Friday evening, Dad brought the pills at 9 p.m. as usual. I took them. I opened my mouth to show him. I let him kiss my forehead. "Sleep well, sweetheart," he said. "Dr. Patterson is coming by tomorrow to check on you." Of course he was. They needed to add more documentation to justify the care facility. After Dad left, I spit out the pill and texted Wesley, "Tomorrow, 11 a.m. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed running through the plan over and over looking for flaws. There were so many ways this could go wrong. But doing nothing guaranteed I'd end up in Riverside Manor, drugged and trapped, while Dad spent Mom's insurance money. Saturday morning I got up early and got dressed. Not in the sweatpants I'd been wearing for months but in real clothes. I did my makeup for the first time since the accident. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. But I looked alert. Healthy and competent. Dad knocked on my door at 10:30. "Cassidy? Dr. Patterson will be here soon. You should rest." "I'm fine, Dad," I called back. "I'll be down in a minute." There was a pause. Then, "Are you feeling okay? You sound different." "I feel great, actually. I'll be right down." I heard his footsteps retreat down the stairs, faster than usual. At 10:55 the doorbell rang. Dr. Patterson's arrival. At 11 o'clock the doorbell rang again. I heard Dad answer it and heard his confused voice. "Wesley, what are you doing here?" "Visiting my sister," Wesley said. His voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. "Hope that's okay with you." I came down the stairs. Dad and Dr. Patterson were in the foyer, both looking at Wesley like he was an intruder. When they saw me, really saw me, awake and alert and steady, something shifted in the room. "Cassidy," Dad said carefully. "You should be resting. Why don't you go back upstairs?" "I'm done resting," I said. The doorbell rang a third time. Dad looked at me, then at Wesley, then at the door. "Who else did you invite?" Wesley opened it. Detective Morrison walked in, followed by my new doctor, Dr. Chin, and a woman in a business suit who introduced herself as an attorney from the State Bar Association. The expression on Dad's face was something I'll remember forever. Confusion. Then understanding. Then pure rage. "What is this?" he demanded. "This is an intervention," I said. "Or an investigation. It depends on how you want to play it." Detective Morrison stepped forward. "Mr. Walker, I'm going to need you to answer some questions about your daughter's medical care and financial management over the past 6 months." Dr. Patterson tried to leave. Wesley blocked the door. What followed was brutal and satisfying in equal measure. Dr. Chen presented her medical evaluation showing I had no cognitive impairment. The drug screening showed I'd been given high doses of sedatives without proper medical supervision. I showed them the videos of Dad entering my room at night, using my laptop photographing my bruises. The attorney examined the power of attorney document. She confirmed what I'd suspected. The signature was forged. The whole document was fraudulent. Wesley presented Dad's bank records which he'd subpoenaed through his own lawyer. The transfers from Mom's insurance. The payments to Dr. Patterson. The contract with Riverside Manor. Dr. Patterson cracked first. He admitted Dad had paid him to create false medical documentation. He claimed he thought it was for Cassidy's own good, that Dad was trying to protect me. Nobody believed him. Dad didn't speak at all. He just sat on the couch in our living room, the same couch where he'd comforted me after Mom's funeral, and stared at the wall. Detective Morrison arrested him that afternoon. Fraud and forgery. Elderly abuse laws applied even though I wasn't elderly because I'd been incapacitated. Dr. Patterson lost his medical license on the spot. The attorney helped me file for emergency control of Mom's insurance money. Because Dad had used fraud to access it, every transfer he'd made was reversed. By Sunday evening I had my life back. But the hardest part wasn't the legal process or the statements to police. The hardest part was Wesley asking me, "Did you know Dad did something to Mom's car?" I looked at him. "What?" "The police are investigating. The truck that hit you guys. The driver said his brakes failed. But there were tools in our garage that match marks on Mom's brake lines." The room went very cold. "They think Dad sabotaged Mom's car," Wesley continued quietly. "The insurance policy was only 6 months old. He'd increased her coverage to $1 million total just before the accident." I couldn't speak. Couldn't process it. My father hadn't just been stealing from me. He'd killed my mother for the money. And he'd almost killed me too. 3 months later I'm standing in my old apartment in the city. The one I thought I'd lost. Turns out the email to my landlord was never sent. Dad had just shown it to me in my drugged state and convinced me it was real. My photography portfolio is rebuilt. The gallery owner was horrified when she learned the truth, and she's giving me a solo exhibition in the spring. Jade and I are speaking again. It took time, but she understood once she knew what had happened. Dad's trial is set for March. Wesley says I don't have to go, but I will. I want him to see my face. I want him to know that his cognitively impaired daughter is the reason he's going to prison. The police confirmed their suspicions about Mom's car. Turns out Dad had been planning this for over a year. The increased insurance. The careful documentation of my decline after the accident. The relationship with Dr. Patterson. All of it was premeditated. He won't be eligible for parole for 20 years. Some nights I still have trouble sleeping. But it's not from the pills anymore. It's from the knowledge that the person who was supposed to protect me was the one I needed protection from. I keep one of those white pills in a small container on my dresser. A reminder that the worst prisons aren't buildings with bars. They're the ones created by people we trust. My name is Cassidy Walker. I'm 28 years old. And I'm the daughter who refused to be erased. Thanks so much for watching. If this story affected you, please leave a comment below about standing up for yourself even when it's terrifying. Hit subscribe to hear more stories about justice and survival. And remember, if something feels wrong, trust your gut. You might be the only one who can save yourself.